Okay, today we're going to look at example number 2 that was on your homework. The problem states that there are two textbooks making companies A and B. It is known that 1% of the company's A's books are defective. It is known that 2% of company's B's books are defective. And CB South gets 38% of his books from company A and the rest from company B. One of the things that I want you to do is to first look at the notation, look at what is being given. And so we basically have two events. Our first event is to determine which textbook company we received the information from. Secondly is to decide whether it is defective or not. So even though they give us 38% down here, and that's the last sentence, that actually is the event that I would choose to use first. So, translate. I always encourage you to first translate what is being given. Look at what you have given. Now, I'm going to start off at this bottom. We're told that P of A is equal to 38%. Remember, when we're dealing with percentages, we always rewrite them using decimals. So that would give my probability of event B of company B to be 0.62. Now let's look at this. It is known that 1% of company A's books are defective. So, given that it is company A, that lets me know that I'm dealing with a conditional probability. So, given that they're A, so anytime you say given that condition, that is going to be located to the right. It is defective. The percentage that are defective would be 0.01. Likewise, given that it is a book from textbook company B, the percentage defective would be 2%. Again, pay attention to what you have given. The next thing you want to do is to create your tree diagram. When we're looking at this, just think about what makes sense. Okay, I have two choices. I have company A and I have company B. So that will be my first options. And we were given that that was 0.38, 0.62. Well, when it comes from company A, we have options. It can be defective or not. Now, oftentimes I like to use the complements, but for these purposes, just to make sure you understand what we're talking about, you can just use defective or not. The key is whatever you do, be consistent with it. So we're told that that will be 0.01 and 0.99. And for my B, it will be 0.02 and 0.98. If you recall, at this point, we can use our multiplication principles because what this tells us is that P of A and D is equal to 0.38 times 0.01, which will give me 0.0038. This would give me the intersection of A and N, which will give me 0.38 times 0.99, which is equal to 0.3762. The probability of B and D is 0.62 times 0.02, which is 0.0124. And the probability of B and N is 0.62 times 0.98, which gives me 0.6076. Now, even though these are symbols, it is important for you to understand what this is actually saying. This right here is saying, what is the probability that the textbook book is both from company A and defective? Remember, and is the intersection. And so this will be A and non-defective, B and defective. Probability of B and non-defective. Okay? Now we're about to look at our problems that we were given. Our constant practice that we use is that we will always utilize our notation. Sometimes you can just look at the graph or our tree diagram to get the answers. And sometimes it's important for us to utilize the formula, but by putting in that notation, it just makes it much, much easier. So, number one says, what is the probability that a book is not defective? So what I'm asking you is, what is the probability of N? Now, remember there are two options for it to be non-defective. It can either be from A or it can be from B. If we go back to our intersections, we see that non-defective A and A will be 0.3762, and non-defective and B will be 0.676. Those exhaust all the possibilities for those that are non-defective. So remember, it can be A or B. Notice the conjunction that I used. I used or. So therefore, we can find out the total amount or the total probability that it can be defective by simply adding those individual probabilities. So my answer will be 0.3762 plus 0.6076, which gives me 0.9838. Looking at the next problem, it says, if a book is not defective, what is the probability that it came from B? Again, this is a conditional probability. If the book is not defective, ask yourself, given that, what is the condition that must be true first? What is the requirement? It is that it is not defective. So therefore, because this is my condition, what is the probability that it came from B? Again, it is important that your order matters. Now, anytime you have a conditional probability, you're actually going to have access to these formulas on your AP Stats formula sheet. And if we recall that this will be the probability of B and N over the probability of N. I noticed on some of you guys' papers that there's a tendency to incorrectly place the denominator. You'll put a B over here. Remember, whatever is to the right of your conditional probability is what is going to go on the denominator. So this will be 0.6076 divided by, if we notice that problem number 1 was 0.9838. And my probability will be 0.6176. Let's look at the last question for this particular problem. If we open a book, and let me make sure I have a little bit more space here. If we open a book and it is defective, what is the probability that it is from company A and company B? Now, one of the things I want you to be very careful of, notice these two distinct question marks. That implies there are two questions. A common mistake that students do is they'll answer the first question and accidentally leave that. So it is imperative that whether it's my exam, the AP exam, that you answer the question with fidelity. So first, we're going to have two separate answers, but for the first one, given that the condition that it is defective, so therefore the defectiveness would go to the right. What is the probability that is from A? So again, we will have P of A intercept D over, that is a D, over the probability of D. Now, let's look at this one right here. The probability of P, A, and D, if we were to scroll back up here, we see that that will be 0.0038. And we're also looking at what is the probability of it being non-defective. Now, we can do this a couple of ways. To figure out the probability of it being defective, you can actually highlight the defectives and add those up. Or what you can do is you can also take the fact that if it is non-defective, you know that that is also the defective is the complement of that. So you can also get that by subtracting that number from 1. So we get that to be 0.0162 is equal to 0.7654. This is the example in which basically they have broken it down for you. Now, the next series of problems are going to be basically problems that are basically written in paragraph form, and they might not necessarily lead you to know what you're going to have to do. So it's important that you use these examples as a guide. So stay tuned for the next couple of problems. I hope you understand everything.